when an investor is going to be investing in a film? What are some key aspects that you think should be in every film? You know, if I were to come to you as a film, or if I were to come to an investor as a filmmaker, you know, what are some things that an investor will right away say, forget it, or yes? Or maybe not say yes, but you know, what are some of those things? Some of those things. So, who wants to go first?
Well, obviously, one of the first things an investor is going to ask for is what kind of business entity have you set up to accept any monies that they may invest in your film, which means that you usually have to incorporate, and the business guy actually will tell you that's a very key component. They're just not going to give you money and say, I'm going to put it in my savings account. It's not going to work that way. You have to have a business and usually a corporation, and it varies from state to state. Different corporations, different tax incentives are involved. That's number one. They want to know what their return on investment is going to be, which is something to be negotiated. And most investors, including distributors, who sometimes can be financiers of the film, are going to want to know who's attached. Are there any well-known name actors? Are there any, who's the director? Is the script done? You have more power when you have a full script, unless you have a background in business and say, you know, I'm Joe Blow, you know me, here's a just want to stay on with it. I don't know how I got down there, but it's there. It's a situation where if you don't have a finished script for them to look at and a top sheet budget at the very least, they're not going to talk to you.
I had a young lady come to me last week telling me that she needed $25,000 to do a small independent film, something I think was related to the music industry in Memphis, and she said she had 10 people picked out that she wanted to solicit. And I asked her, you know, as you said, have you set up your business entity? Have you sort of set up the shell so that when you went to them, if they asked the question, well, what ownership piece am I going to have? Am I going to be a partner? Am I going to be a shareholder? A lot of business people like to have these answers because, quite frankly, as we know, this is a very, very risky business in general. So, if you can give comfort to an investor that perhaps if it doesn't make money, the very least he can do is, for example, take it as a tax loss. You just don't know. But there are a lot of people who are possibly willing to give you the $5,000 as a unit, let's say, if they know that there are other, besides getting a return on investment in the movie, if it doesn't go that way, because sometimes you've got to look at the worst case scenario for an investor, is your business set up so that I can take these advantages? And she really had no clue, and I always hope that by the time people come to me as an attorney, they at least have those basics down. So she wasn't even halfway ready to go to an investor. So one of the things, as you said, is get your business stuff all ready before you go and ask for money.
Well, our business plan may be a little different than the individual investor. Well, we invest in theatrically produced films, and so we look at, do you have an actor that can open the film? What has the director done before? What kind of box office revenue has the director done before? Has he done budgets of similar size, or is he on the way down? Is he on the way up? We look for comparables in terms of the script, the genre, how it's projected to do, how you might project that film to do in the theaters, and then what would be the ancillaries from that, primary being the DVD or home video. So those are the primary things. And then secondarily, the deal. Excuse me. The deal is critical. How much do I have invested in the equity of the deal relative to whether it's going to be a foreign pre-sale, tax incentives, or other monies that come in that don't eat into the back end of the film where I'm going to see my profit.
I think that probably the one thing I've heard from most people and from we've just done our first feature and we haven't really made any money. So if you go over to the studio on the square, you can pay $10 and that will help pay for it. So I'm talking just from the standpoint of having done a lot of documentary work and from having been, you know, in this business in town for a long time. And the first thing that I always get from people is, you know, what have you done? Because I think so many times that people come in from totally left field, you know, I'm going to make this film. And people, I think, look at you and go, well, show me what you've done. And people, well, I've got to have money to do something. And I took a different tack. I mean, I did a lot of corporate stuff and, you know, learned how to do all this. And I started doing my documentary work basically for free. And then once I had 2 or 3 things that were on public television, I started doing some museum work, then people knew. So, you know, I put myself in a position, I had to invest for a few years in myself to have a reputation so people don't even ask that question. They say, okay, yeah, I know your work. So for me, I think if someone came to me looking to invest, I would say, that would be the first thing. What have you done? Show me some of your stuff. Because most people will say, well, I need money to do this. And that's not an acceptable answer. And I think a lot of people fall down in this business, especially in thinking that you have to have a lot of money to do something, to step out there. Let me tell you, you don't. You really don't. I will say this. I did a documentary on Elmwood Cemetery, it's our oldest cemetery here, 1852. You know, everybody, you can tell the Memphis story from telling the Elmwood Cemetery story. So I did that. Did it in my spare time. Took a year. I wanted to shoot all the seasons. I wanted to get snow. Wanted to get the fall. Wanted to get all these things. So I did that. Never turned down a bit of paying work, and I was doing tons of corporate work, a lot of live shows. Never turned down a penny of that. But I did that. It wound up. I paid Bennett Wood $350 to read the voiceover for me, and I spent about $125 on tape. So for a very, very little money, I did a documentary that's probably showing tonight on the library channel. So when people come to me and say, you know, you've got to have money to do this, then, you know, you really don't. Oh, that was the bell. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I was thinking, what idiot did this? I'm sorry. It's more of a guy.
Now, right before I move on to the next subject, just so you don't feel discouraged and think that you have to put it, which is a great way to do it, as Willie suggested. But oftentimes you may not have that opportunity. So in that case, if you create as good a script as you possibly can, give it out to people who read it, and do everything you can to get it to certain actors, because you can beat that if you get the right actor or director attached to the project. Then distributors, investors may be very interested if you have that attachment, which is predicated on your sales skills, how good your script are, and the contacts you try to generate. It's all hard work, but you don't necessarily have to do it Willie's way, although that's a great way to do it.
Well,